He disappeared for 10 years, but what happened when he came back will break you. It was a cold November evening in a quiet suburb of Chicago when Daniel Reed stood outside the small house he once called home, his breath visible in the freezing air and his heart pounding harder than it ever had before. The yellow porch light flickered slightly, just as he remembered, casting a soft glow on the door he had walked out of 10 years ago without looking back. In his trembling hands, he held a worn-out letter, creased, rewritten, and stained with tears, his final attempt to explain the unexplainable. A decade earlier, Daniel had convinced himself that leaving was the only way to give his family a better life. He chased a dream of success, believing that one day he would return as a man worthy of admiration. But life had other plans. The dream turned into a nightmare of failures, broken promises, and endless loneliness. Every night, no matter where he was, the memory of Emily's tearful eyes and the tiny cry of his newborn daughter haunted him. Success never came, but regret did, slowly, painfully, and completely. Inside the house, Emily moved quietly, setting the dinner table for two. The home was simple, filled with warmth, but also with the silent absence of someone who had once been part of it. She had spent years rebuilding her life, learning to be both mother and father to her daughter, Lily. There were nights she cried herself to sleep, not because she missed Daniel, but because she didn't understand how someone could just leave without a word. And then, just as she placed the last plate on the table, there was a knock, soft, uncertain, almost afraid. Her body froze. Something about that knock felt familiar, like a ghost from a life she had buried deep inside. Slowly, she walked toward the door, her heart racing, her mind filled with questions she never thought she'd have to face again. When she opened it, time seemed to stop. There he was, Daniel, older, thinner, his eyes carrying years of pain and regret. The confident man she once knew was gone, replaced by someone who looked like he had been fighting battles no one else could see. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was heavy, filled with everything they had never said. Before Emily could find the words, a voice came from behind her. "Mom, who is it?" Lily stepped forward, now a teenager with curious eyes and a guarded expression. Daniel looked at her, and in that instant, the world around him faded. He saw pieces of himself in her face, but also the strength of Emily, the strength he had abandoned. His eyes filled with tears as he struggled to speak. "Hi, I'm your dad," he whispered, his voice breaking under the weight of the truth. Lily's face hardened almost immediately. "You don't get to say that," she replied, her voice calm but sharp, shaped by years of silence and unanswered questions. "Dads don't disappear." Her words cut deeper than anything Daniel had ever experienced, but he didn't argue because he knew she was right. Emily turned away slightly, wiping her tears, memories flooding back. The nights Lily had asked why her father never called, the birthdays with an empty chair, the lies she had told just to protect her daughter from the pain of the truth. Daniel slowly dropped the letter to the ground, as if it no longer mattered. Words suddenly felt useless. He sank to his knees, unable to carry the weight of his guilt any longer. "I don't deserve forgiveness," he said, his voice trembling, "and I don't expect it. I couldn't live another day without telling you both how sorry I am." The cold air surrounded them, but none of them moved. It felt like the world itself was waiting for something to happen, for someone to break the silence. Lily looked at him, really looked at him for the first time, not as the father who abandoned her, but as a broken man standing in front of her with nothing left to hide. Slowly, she stepped forward and picked up the letter from the ground. Her hands shook slightly as she held it, unsure whether to open it or throw it away. She looked at her mother, searching for guidance, but Emily said nothing. This was Lily's moment, her decision.
Taking a deep breath, Lily turned back to Daniel. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she said softly, her voice no longer angry but uncertain. "But I want to understand why you left." Those words shattered whatever strength Daniel had left. Tears streamed down his face as he realized that this wasn't forgiveness. It was something even more fragile and powerful, a chance. Emily watched them both, her heart torn between the pain of the past and the possibility of healing. After a long pause, she stepped aside, leaving the door open. It wasn't a sign that everything was okay. It wasn't, but it was a silent acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, the story wasn't over yet. Daniel hesitated for a moment, afraid that if he stepped inside, it might all disappear like a dream. But then he took a slow step forward, crossing the threshold he once abandoned. The house felt the same, yet completely different, filled with memories, but also with years he could never get back. As they sat together for the first time, the silence returned, but this time it wasn't suffocating. It was fragile, uncertain, but filled with something new, hope. Daniel began to speak, not as a man trying to justify his mistakes, but as someone finally ready to face them. And as Lily listened, holding on to every word, and Emily quietly watched, one truth became clear to all of them. Sometimes the greatest miracle in life isn't being forgiven, it's being given the chance to try, even after everything has been broken.